Hi, welcome to Matters of the Heart and Soul. I'm your host, Janie Charlo. Matters of the Heart and Soul is a podcast to raise awareness and awaken humanity to all that is within. We want to be a beacon of light on your life journey. Hey guys, welcome back to Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast. I am your host, Janie Charlo, and I really want to apologize. My voice is a bit raspy today. I'm currently doctoring myself back to perfect health, but I did not want to miss the opportunity of announcing my co-host, Russell Bruce. So Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast, we will be co-hosting with Russell Bruce, and I'm totally excited about this. I think that the energy Russell is going to bring to the podcast will be amazing. I think having the male masculine energy and perspective on some of the things and issues that we're going to talk about on the podcast will be another added advantage. And also, I think that the interviews that he's going to have set up will be just amazing for me to participate in. So I'm totally excited to be sharing this platform with Russell. So with that being said, our first podcast co-hosting, we will be talking with Jason Rankin, and we're going to be talking about why was Kobe Bryant's death so impactful. So stay tuned and we'll get these guys going. Hi, welcome to Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast. I am your host, Janie Charlo, and this is a special podcast because I am co-hosting with Russell Bruce. Hey, Russell.
Hey, Janie.
So today we're going to be speaking with Jason Rankin, and Russell will be introducing Jason and also the topic today.
All right, let's get right into it. Jason Rankin is a great friend of mine. He's from my hometown in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. We played together on the 1982 WPIAL championship team, as well as state runners-up. Jason has coached basketball for 30 years. He was the first African-American head coach in Newcastle sports history. He has 7 district championships under his belt and won the title in 2010, the girls' title, District VII, and in 2011 was named Section Coach of the Year. Jason, in his career, has coached 17 1,000-point scorers and has also coached 43 students that went on to play at the collegiate level.
Wow. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about Kobe Bryant's life and death and the impact that it has had on so many people, like not only in sports, but outside of sports. And Jason, let's kind of jump right into it. You're a father, you're a coach, you've played, you've coached girls, your daughters, you have 2 daughters. So it's like, with me, it was very relatable because of all these different aspects, because the fact that he was a father. I'm a father. I've coached my daughter and my son. And, being a champion, all those things just impacted me. Like Kobe was bigger than basketball. Can you kind of expound on that?
Well, yeah, because I agree. Kobe was bigger than basketball because he had a 20-year career with the Lakers. And for me, I'm a lifelong Laker fan. I've been a fan since the 70s. So obviously I was a big fan of his. And, throughout the course of his career, not only did he win games and, accolades, he's an MVP, won 5 championships, but towards the end of his career, especially the last third of his career, he became a lot more involved with people outside of basketball. He did a lot of charity work. He also mentored a lot of players coming up and coming through, and not just his teammates, but other players. And that's pretty remarkable when you talk about mentoring guys you may play against, So he did a lot of special things that were well beyond basketball. And he took pride in being a father, being a husband. And he really worked at just doing other things beyond basketball, which a lot of it came out really after he died. He did a lot of altruistic things that obviously people didn't know about when he was alive.
Exactly. And people say that a lot, whether it's relationships or people's lives, it's like you tend to learn more about them in the end than you do at the beginning, because now it kind of forces people to delve deeper. Like me, even personally, I understood who he was as a basketball player. I knew, about his beautiful family. You would see him kissing him after the games and such. But afterwards, everybody dug deeper because you have all these different people who had different experiences with him. So you kind of get the good, bad, and indifferent. But you got to delve deeper into who he was as a person, who he was as a father, a mentor, as a husband, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So and let me ask you, so during the time in which Kobe played in high school, you were coaching. Were you familiar with him as a high school basketball player?
Yes, it's funny because I was a boys coach in 1996 when he was in high school, his senior year. And at the time, the team I was coaching, our high school, Newcastle, we were doing really well at one point in time during the season. We were 14-1, and we were actually number 2 in the state. So I was an assistant coach, and I was just kind of looking through the papers, which is, shows you 1996 was actual newspaper print. And saw number 1 team in the country, the number 1 team in the state was Lower Merion. And, if you, at that time, if you knew anything about Pennsylvania basketball, at least Eastern Pennsylvania basketball, the big names were Chester, Coatesville, which actually had Rip Hamilton had graduated the year before. And Lower Merion wasn't a really well-known school. So I was like, how is Lower Merion number 1, So I did some research, and I saw Lower Merion's led by this high school All-American Kobe Bryant. I thought, who is Kobe Bryant? Where'd this name come from? So looked into that, and I said, oh, it's Joe Bryant's son. And I thought, wow, this kid must be pretty good. Maybe we'll play him, because at that time, like I said, it was like mid-January, I think, maybe early January. We were number 2 in the state. I thought maybe we're on a collision course, but things didn't work out for us. We kind of imploded and went the wrong way, and his team ended up winning the state championship, and they actually beat a team had talked about before, Erie Prep, which was a team we played when we were in high school, which is a Western Pennsylvania power. So, I kind of knew about him then, and I was to say, hey, this kid must be good. And then he made the announcement he was going to become a pro, and I thought, wow, he must be really good because he's only 6'6". And of course, like I said, I'm a lifelong Laker fan. When the Lakers took him, I thought, wait, what's going on here? And is he really this good? And I was kind of worried because I thought, well, they needed some other players. They hadn't gotten Shaq officially. So when they drafted him, I thought, let's give it a shot. But from the moment I saw him play, I could see his determination and his focus. And, he was obviously 18 years old. He was thin. But he was out there playing. And I remember through the course of his rookie year, he didn't start early, and they brought him along slowly. But by the end of the year, he was playing. He was playing a lot, starting. And he was probably most famously or infamously known for the air balls against Utah in the series, his rookie year. But, as Kobe was, he said he learned from it. He learned that, you've got to be able or willing to take that shot or put your name on the line, put yourself on the line to get better. And, that's a great teaching tool. And as a coach, you're always trying to use the game itself to teach life lessons. And that was one of the many, that we would learn from Kobe over the next 20 years.
So let me ask you a question. So we know he was a great player, right? What do you think? What do you think it was about Kobe that has made it so impactful? Like his death, like for example, there's only certain people that have passed on that cause grown men to cry open in public. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
what was it about Kobe and who he was that caused that?
I think it was a few factors. Let's be honest. He's no different than all of us, where he had his ups and downs. People don't realize the Lakers, his last couple of years were not very good. Okay, so his career was stellar individually, but they had some bad years. But they also won 5 championships. But I think it was the fact that, one, his determination to continue to get better as a player, to never rest on his laurels, to never say, I'm 10-time All NBA or whatever else when he was in year 12 or 13. He was still the same player at year 20, at least mentally, as he was physically. But I think the other thing too was, again, as we kind of hit on at the beginning, people started to see his personality, his willingness to give, his joy. The fact that he had a great sense of humor. You saw it a lot of times on the talk shows. He was a very funny guy. And then his love and admiration for his children and his wife. I think one of the things that really made that special for him was, you have this big, strong, strapping guy, who was, talked, the game, so to speak, worked hard at it, but he was this doting, loving father of 4 girls. And for me personally, that really hit home for me because I was raised in a family where I had 6 sisters, 5 older. I have 2 girls. And at the time when when they were winning championships, my girls were small. They were babies. And 2010 was really a special year for me because the Lakers won the championship and my girls' basketball team had won the championship. And, I started out coaching boys for a long time. And, just in full disclosure, I was like somewhat sexist at the beginning because I would, see girls playing basketball, think, no way, no way. And then when I had daughters, I thought maybe, but then it just kind of fell on in my lap that I became a girls coach. And I said, wow, I really enjoy this. So, I think a lot of people saw, just his passion. A lot of people saw his kindness. A lot of people saw his willingness to evolve as a person. And, the giving that he had, the giving nature he had, as just great qualities. And for a man to have all those things and to die so young was very hurtful, not just for Laker fans or basketball fans, but for the casual fan who was just a fan of Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, I agree.
It's definitely. So, and also, to find out what all he was doing to help push forward the WNBA and women's basketball overall, and how he would take Gianna around the country, to go see Connecticut play, different WNBA players that they were close to. I found a lot of that stuff amazing. That he had impacted not only a lot of guys in the NBA that he was training a lot of WNBA players as well.
Yeah, he reached out to a lot of them.
Jason, you're currently a girls coach, right? Is that right?
No, I'm currently a boys coach. I'm currently an assistant boys coach. I was a girls coach off and on. It's an interesting thing. Like I said, I had no interest in coaching girls. And my alma mater asked me to be an assistant coach. And I thought, to be honest with you, when she first asked me, the head coach, this was 2005. I thought, yeah, girls, what happens if I say the wrong thing? You know what I mean? Sometimes, have a wide mouth. What happens if, excuse me?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, what are some of the differences in coaching girls versus boys teams?
And people always ask me this because I think for a couple of reasons. One, at our high school, I was an assistant coach for the boys when we were really, really good. And of course, Russell and I both played there. And then when I became a girls coach, we actually won a couple of championships. And then, like I said, when I first was asked, I had some reservations. And then the coach said, come watch us work out, come watch us, practice. And I thought I'll give it a shot. And, I learned so much about myself, and what I learned about myself was, I had to communicate better. One of the things about coaching girls is that girls get the big picture when it comes to sports. Because, WNBA players are not paid exorbitant salaries. A lot of them have other jobs. So education is very important, for a girls basketball player quite often. And if you see girls sports in general, women's sports in general in college, most of the athletes will graduate, the schools graduate at very high rates. So they go on to do other things right after their collegiate career is over. So when you coach girls, at least through my experience, you have got to, there's no smoke and mirrors. You can give some rah-rah speeches, but if they don't like each other and they don't like you, they have other things to do. I actually, my first year when I was a head coach, we would go to playoff games, and I had girls who would request to keep the lights on the bus so they could do homework. Whereas when you coach a boy or coach boys teams, quite often, pretty much every player on the team has some dream of going to the NBA. And it's a very far-fetched dream, and you can tell the kids that a lot, but they don't hear it, until they actually have their careers are over. So coaching girls, you have a lot more, I can't say control of the game, but there's a lot more things you have to be aware of. Whereas coaching boys, sometimes, if you have a great player, he takes over the game and it's it. And I've seen girls teams that have had great players, but because the team they played against had a better team, they were able to stop that player and win championships. And, I really enjoy coaching girls because the other thing is they're just a lot of fun. I was lucky enough when I had my girls, I stayed at home with them because I worked overnights. So I spent a lot of time with them growing up, when they were infants and playing with them and, reading to them, doing all those things that you do, when you were able to dote on your kids. And so when I became a girls coach, I realized that they just appreciated that much more. They let their feelings show. I had tons and tons of meetings with girls and cry sessions and, fights and arguments and makeups. And I'm talking about players inside, we had that, whereas boys hold their feelings in a lot, so it's a lot more emotional. And if you're not prepared for it, it can be overwhelming. But again, like I said, I was raised in a house full of girls and, I was used to it. And I always say, if there was ever one guy who was ready to coach girls, it was me. And ironically, I didn't see it until somebody had to knock me over the head with it.
Jason, let me ask you a question. So I was doing some research one day about him and his helicopter, right? And they were talking about how he had missed some of their school events and he got tired of sitting in traffic and being late. So he started flying a helicopter around. How big is that as a father to miss out on your kids' events because you have to travel with the team, things of that nature? Can you relate on that?
It is hard, it's funny when you coach high school basketball, it's nothing obviously near, NBA commitment, but it is a tremendous commitment because it's not just the 4 months of the season, but there's out of season. So you have to be very aware of what's going on in your family's lives to make sure you're there for them. And there are times you may have a game, and like my daughters, both were very much involved in school plays and singing, and they did a lot of different things, cabarets and stuff like that. And, you have to be aware of those dates to make sure that you're there for them. And the great thing for them with me was that they were very supportive of me. They came to the games. My oldest daughter, Sophia, huge fan of mine as a coach. And she never missed a game, followed us, especially when I was coaching the girls. Was right there front and center at the games. And I wanted to make sure I reciprocated whenever she had an event to do. I work in the school system, and quite often, when they had things as younger children, we were able to go and see, little plays and things like that during the course of the day. But you have to make sure. I know one of the things that Al McGuire, the old coach from Marquette, used to say was that you can't make basketball your mistress. Your family has to come first. And that's important. It really is. And, for years, they were very supportive as, I was at the same school that they went to. And when I went to a different school, because I wanted to reach out, it was hard when they couldn't come. So I understood, what they may have felt if I couldn't make it to something that they were doing, but my girls didn't play basketball for me past 7th grade, but I never had a problem with that because they had so many other pursuits that I wanted them to look at other things because of the commitment that it took, and I wanted them to, like I said, to sing, and I wanted them to make sure they were good students, which they were. And I wanted them to enjoy other things, and they became well-rounded people and didn't spend, all this time in the gym. And I had to make sure that I was there as much as I humanly possibly could for all the things that they did.
Let me ask you a question.
That's good stuff.
Can you speak on the fact that Kobe was a girl dad? Can you speak on that? Like, for example, it just made me think more deeper about my relationship with my daughter, and just going back through all the pictures and everything that I had, and to really appreciate that particular bond, because as men, I think that we're the first ones that have the ability to accept or reject them, right?
Yes.
Your mother's child, but daddy has that choice, not a good choice, to disappear in their life or just not be present. But it just made me appreciate a lot more that I kind of was in that same line in which Kobe was, like being present for my daughter, and not only showing up for events. I coached her. I'm her number one supporter. I show up at practice. All these things. Like when she sang, like if she didn't do well, she needed a shoulder to cry on. I was always there for her, right? So those were some of the things that I thought about when I started looking at Kobe and Gianna, and not only them but his other daughters as well, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that that bond was so tight. Can you elaborate on the girl dad? I'm not gonna call it a fad. Hopefully, it stays around and just gets a lot more men to kind of look at their relationships with their young girls, because we do have a major impact. And one more thing I'll say is, and the reason why I always look back at Venus and Serena, right? I remember when they were young and they were number one and two in the world.
Yeah.
And during the interview, they were asked, "What made you two think that you could ever become number one and two in the world?" And they said that our dad told us we would be. So
Mhm.
it's the father's words are almost like prophecy to young girls. Can you elaborate on that?
That's a great
Oh, yeah.
question.
Well, and it is a great question, and it's a tremendous situation because, you know, for you and I, we had in some similarities in upbringing. We both grew up in public housing. Mothers worked, to try and make sure everything was together. So from the beginning, we saw women as strong people in our lives. Like I said, I had five older sisters who were very strong-willed, very intelligent, and put me in my place at a very young age about knowing what to do, when to do it, and just showing that they were equals. So when the time came that I was blessed enough to have daughters, I never saw them as anything less than special gifts. My mother told me years ago when I had my first son, she said, as long as your child's healthy, you should feel blessed. And so I never really, thought about girls or boys. It was just, happy to be there. And so when they were young, I raised them and I tried to raise them, to be strong, to speak and think on their own, so that we would have that kind of a relationship. But I also was very open to the girl thing, so to speak. Like, you saw Kobe quite often in interviews talk about, watching Disney movies and singing songs with them and dancing with them. And those are things that, you do when you're a father, when you just, adore your kids and your girls especially. And, I was just always just so happy to be with them because, they just brought out the joy in me. And the one thing I always used to say was, I looked at my daughters and I saw like every woman in my life who was special to me. My mother, I saw my grandmother, my wife, of course, their mother, my sisters, and I saw a little bit of everything, and that made me so close to them. And now they're adults, and we're still very close. But growing up, uh, I just had so much fun with them. It was great to be. We live in a small town, so you become a little bit known. People know who you are if you stay around long enough. And of course, we had some success as a coach, as a team when I was coaching. So there was like that kind of a pressure out in public, to be a certain person. But at home, I was just dad, and that was important to me, and it still is. Sometimes when I get on them, I hate to even say it, but the truth of the matter is they know how to get to me. They always do, because they're my girls, and
Girls Do?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, they do. They do. They always do. You know, I always used to joke, and I always thought, all my kids love me, and I certainly loved all my kids. But my daughter, my oldest daughter, um, used to just think I walked on water when she was a kid, and it was funny because my son would come over, and I was close with him, obviously, and he'd come over and visit, and we'd talk, and he was probably 13 years old, 14 years old. And my daughter would come in the room, and if he was sitting beside me, she'd come sitting between us, you know.
Mhm.
And she just, that was just everything. And as a matter of fact, her younger sister had to take the brunt of it because whenever I had to, change her or feed her or give her my youngest attention, she was just not happy, and just that little jealousy. Obviously, I could control it and I could contain it, but I loved it in a way, and sometimes it was tough, but it just made me feel so much better as a father. And I think that, as parents, if we can look at our children as equals who have a chance to do wonderful, special things in life because of the way we raise them and give them the opportunity, then that's all that really matters. I mean, like I said, I have boys, coach girls, and, it's the person inside, which is the most important thing. But it's really nice to see that attention being brought to, and like you said, and I agree. I hope it's not a fad. I hope that a lot of men become a lot more responsible with their kids and enjoy uh, the time and being a girl dad.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I think it's amazing actually because um being a woman, uh I've always been close to my dad. My dad passed away about a year ago.
I'm sorry.
But I think as far as the Kobe Bryant situation, basketball is competitive, right? And it's a competitive sport, and it's about being strong, and it's about the hustle, and it's about winning. And so it's nice to see, like, I think the soft side of what Kobe represented as being a girl dad,
Yes,
um, because in sports it's all about winning, and a lot of that is ego, right? And I get you
exactly.
have that to win, but I think it brings some light to the world in relationships with fathers and daughters, because it's very, very, very important. The relationship a woman has with her dad is the first male relationship, right?
Yes,
And
correct.
there's a lot of women broken because they never got that attention from their own fathers.
Daddy issues.
Daddy issues.
Well, and exactly, I totally agree. And one of the worst points about that is girls growing up feeling like they're second class children to a son because of a father who becomes enamored with having a junior, or becomes enamored with
Yeah.
having chip off the old block. And I'll tell you a great story.
It's like culturally, right? That's been like that.
Yes,
Like, can you give me a son? Can you give me a son? Can you give me a son? Because the son carries the name or the family name or the
he looks like
business,
the dad or whatever.
the legend. Yeah. So it's just nice and refreshing to see this going around right now.
I think Kobe's impact with his daughters and what he was trying to do with women's basketball and women in general, I just think it keeps the conversation going. Actually, it opens up people's eyes. Some people probably weren't paying attention to some of the things that have come out recently in the media in reference to them being underpaid and so forth. But
Yes,
I myself, over the last 10 years, have found WNBA pretty interesting. Back in the day, I would probably just turn the channel, but they've become so good at what they do.
Mm.
And the thing is, I've played with some women like Teresa Edwards and Keisha Brown. I've played with them on a regular basis for years, and fundamentally, they're usually more sound. They don't waste movement. They're, if you're opening your head them, they pass you the ball. They don't wave you off or try to make a fancy pass. But so Jason, there was some talk about possibly changing the logo to Kobe, things of that nature. So the NBA did go ahead and name the NBA All-Star MVP trophy after him, which I thought was a great idea. What else should we expect as far as his legacy and memories of Kobe from the Lakers and the NBA?
Well, I was pretty fired up when they talked about that. When I saw that was like a petition going around, on the internet, and they had a few million people who were interested in wanted to see that. And I thought it was interesting because Jerry West is that image, but the NBA doesn't actually admit to that. And the reason why, and I think that was the reason why they didn't change it to Kobe, because I'm not sure what that would have entailed, since Jerry West has probably never gotten a dime for being the logo of the NBA. But I think what you'll see, and I think especially from the NBA, the players he touched, the players he reached out to, the players he mentored and instructed, are going to continue his legacy, because it was so heartfelt, for him to reach out to other players. Kobe played 20 years for the Lakers, and anytime that you play that long for one team, obviously you have that in your blood. That is your team, that is your personality. And quite often what happens is that shuts you off from a lot of the rest of the league. You're a Laker, whatever, you're a Celtic, you're a Steeler, a Cowboy, whatever, so you almost have bad blood with other players who play on other teams. And Kobe was not like that. And for him to reach out and mentor those other guys, is something I think he looked to plant a seed for those players to take and do to other players as they come in the league. And not just as, showing them certain moves, footwork, jump shots, whatever else it may be, but investments or community interest, community involvement, any altruistic endeavor that they may go about, and to continue to grow. Because he said so many great things, and one of the things that I really latched onto was that if you can, your goal in life should be to use your craft to make the world a better place. And I mean, that's paraphrasing, but that's always how I've kind of approached coaching. As much success as I've been a part of, as many great players that I've been fortunate to coach, in many games, I've been able to be a part of wins. The bottom line is relationships that you lay down and you have based on the sport, the things that the kids have learned from things you want to teach them about working hard, setting goals, sacrificing, being part of a team, which is bigger than just yourself or your wants or needs or desires, is what the sport's about. I coached 30 years. I had one player that I was very close to that got drafted, so in 30 years of all the players I've ever had, only one was able to make a living playing basketball. All the rest of them had to do other things, and they had to take those life lessons. And I certainly hope that, I was a small part of their lives that made things better for them, talking to them just in their time of need, or just trying to give them some information that would make them better people and they can take, with them after they left. And that's, seemingly what Kobe was about at the end of his career, reaching out to other players, reaching out to other people. I saw something last night. I was watching a show about him, and they talked about he had over 200 people who were Make-A-Wish recipients that he had reached out to and met and granted their wish. It's 200. That's an absolutely insane number when you think about, a lot of athletes do one or two, and become, they get this great following because of it. And he did 200. And to be honest with you, I didn't know he had done one. And not that it mattered, but,
Yeah.
For him to, have done so much and never, ever once tried to, make it a spectacle about him, it's amazing. I know a couple of days after, the tragedy, I was looking on Twitter, and there was a story of a lady who had a son who lived in Phoenix, right outside of Phoenix, and he was in the hospital. And her son was like 6 or 7 years old. And she said that she wrote the Lakers and said that it was towards the end of Kobe's career, and that, he really wanted to meet Kobe, and he was, terminally ill. And Kobe wrote back and told to his publicist, yes, but one condition, no publicity. And, the lady said, that's fine. And she was happy. And she said, well, there'll probably be something. And the day came that they were going to play Phoenix, and Kobe came to the hospital, and he came in the back door, made sure that there was no cameras, no nothing, because he didn't want anything or anybody knowing that he was there. And the lady said, to her surprise, he didn't come in and shake the kid's hand and give him an autographed basketball and leave. She said he was there for an hour talking to the kid, talking about basketball and playing catch with him and things like that. And she said that, and although he ended up unfortunately passing away, she said he spent every day of his life talking about that time he met Kobe Bryant, the rest of the time. Wow. And that's what I said, and that was only because Kobe died that we even knew something like that.
Exactly.
Because this lady had kept it inside of herself for maybe 5 or 6 years. Because that's what he wanted. He wanted it to be real. He wanted it to be truly giving. Because you're not giving when you're looking for attention because you gave to people.
Absolutely not.
You're looking to be satisfied. You're looking to have your own insecurities satisfied, your own ego satisfied. When you give from the heart and you don't ask for anything in return, and you don't want somebody to tell you, what a special job you did by giving something, then that's truly what it's about.
That's a great point.
So, Jason, we've seen a lot of great basketball players in the NBA, right? So, yeah. My two favorite were Michael Jordan and then Kobe. And what separated them from everybody else to me was their mindset, and their ability to play hard on both ends of the court and leaving everything on the floor. Both of them played sick, both played injured. What is it about Kobe? What is the Mamba mentality?
Well, I think, first of all, my two favorite players were Kareem and Kobe, both Lakers. And that was actually the reason why I was a Laker fan, was because Kareem was my favorite player. And I can just, from using him and from using Kobe or anybody who's had that kind of achievement, I think the mentality is that finding a way to get it done is a way to start with it. That throughout the course of your life, you're going to be challenged and you're going to be outside of your comfort zone, and you're going to have to find a way to get things done, whether it be at your job or in your relationship. I think parenting is a true example of that. There's no book for that. And there's a lot of things that you have to learn on the fly. And, one of the things that Kobe did was, you talk about an 18-year-old kid, and, certainly I've spent a lot of time around 18-year-old kids coaching. And to think of an 18-year-old kid hanging around grown men, 25, 26, 27 years old, hanging around them, knowing full well that he's gunning for their positions. Mm-hmm. He had to really, really emotionally have to deal with a lot his first few years in the league. He had to become very strong. While other guys went out, he was home. He was back in a room, back in a hotel, whatever else. While other guys were, maybe not working as hard, he was in the gym. And that mentality of, finding a way to get it done is what made his career what it was. Everybody remembers, anybody who knows anything about Kobe remembers the torn Achilles. And after he tore his Achilles, he didn't come out of the game. He shot free throws and then came out of the game. And people were talking about, they were amazed he could stand, let alone shoot a free throw, which, obviously anybody who plays basketball knows that you have to bend your knees, which puts pressure on your Achilles, and you have to follow through, which goes to your toes, which really puts pressure on your Achilles. But that was him finding a way to get it done, And I think one of the great things about his interest and his appeal to the women's game was that he was looking a way to get respect to the women's game through the WNBA, which would have trickled down to college and which would have trickled down to high school and certainly junior high. He had reached out to multiple WNBA players and college players about improving their game, about what it took to actually become a better player. And you saw them speak at his memorial. So, that mentality is what drove him after they lost to Detroit in 2004, I think it was. when they lost the finals. And I remember him sitting on the bench. And if there was ever a moment that I truly became a huge fan of his, I remember him sitting on a bench, and the clock was running out. They were about to lose the series, and he had a tear coming down his face.
I remember.
And I thought, I loved it because, again, like I said, I had a tear coming down my face too because I'm a Laker fan, but it meant that much to him. It wasn't the money, it wasn't the championship, the fame. It was losing. It was losing to a team that was a better team, but they had better players. And they said that. The Lakers had better players, but the Pistons were a better team. And that hurt him. And it hurt him so much that he drove himself to continue to reshape his game and to reshape the Lakers, to come back in 2008. And I can remember them losing to Boston and getting absolutely annihilated in the Garden. And my heart was crushed because, the Celtics were the Lakers' biggest rivals since the beginning of the NBA. And the Celtics were able to celebrate and Kobe had to put it on the back shelf and, had to find a way the next year to come back and win a championship. And they did. And I was watching the thing with he and Shaq, and they talked about how as much as they loved each other and had put everything behind them, they were still competitive. And it was important to Kobe to win 5 championships because Shaq only won 4. And that was just finding a way to get it done, and that's what I think a lot of people can appreciate and respect in him, those who knew him and those who were fans of him. Whether you liked him or disliked him, you always respected the fact that he found a way to get it done.
Yeah, and I could see with that mentality on the court, I mean, it would only trickle down to his family and his wife and kids.
Oh, tremendous. Yeah, exactly. And you could see, in since his passing in the last 6 weeks, you've seen, I'm sure stories about, some of the ideas that he and his wife had in regards to doing things in the community, doing things even regionally, nationally. She was very much involved in his goals and his ideas. They were pretty much on the same page in giving back to communities and raising their children. And they truly were, connected that way. And I think that made his retirement that much easier. He never looked back. He never thought I should come back. I don't ever remember him dabbling about what the Lakers should or shouldn't do. He still talked to players, but he talked to them just as a mentor. He never compared himself and who I'm better than, who I'm worse than, and who's better in today's game. He truly gave everything he had for his 20 years, and he moved on. And that's one of the things I talk about when I talk to kids about coaching. And sometimes they think I'm being morbid, but I say, you have to understand, we all are on earth as a time, limited basis, but your career is the same way. And the only difference is that exactly when your career is pretty much going to end. So you have to get the most out of everything you have on the floor, off the floor, in the classroom, because you're only going to be here for 3 years. Sometimes if you're lucky, if you're really good, 4 years. That's in high school, and then you have to take it and move on. And you have to look at it as every day that passes is one less day you have a chance to achieve. And, that's one of the things I really try and stress to kids, because I say that knowing it will end should make you want and enjoy it that much more, and, I think it's a great thing that he was able to do. I'm sorry, what?
I just said, and be willing to pass the baton and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Because what you learned, somebody taught you, and you have almost a responsibility to teach the next ones coming behind you. And that's what builds programs. That's what builds families. That's what builds businesses. That's how, success is built, because people who have bought into the idea of what this company or what this family or what this program is about, they pass that on, and that continues to shine even after you're gone.
I work for a company right now. I'm not going to disclose their name because I'm not sure if I get in trouble. But from the owner's personal mindset, it has trickled down to all their restaurants. I guess some people could probably figure out who it is. It has trickled down. He created a culture that many felt was unsustainable, but now it's like just they're dominating the fast food restaurant industry. But you
Mm-hmm.
see other industries kind of mimicking now what they said wouldn't work because now they see it working and they're like just totally dominating the market. But hey man, this has been great. You've been a great guest.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely, Jason. And I agree with each one teach one, right? I think we all have responsibility to teach the next generation, pass down the wisdom.
Agree.
Um, yeah, so we appreciate you. You've given a lot of insight. I can tell you're very passionate about coaching, which to me, coaching is teaching. And so you're constantly
Anyway,
every day pouring yourself out into other kids, right?
well, it's exactly it. Exactly it. And you have to love it. You know, I mean, I can't believe it's been 30 years. I can still remember my first practice. You know,
Yeah.
I've coached. I started out coaching seventh grade and did that for a couple of years, and I've been a high school coach since. But in the meantime, I've done AAU. Like I said, I did girls, did boys. But I love it. It's a passion of mine. I don't do a whole lot of any other things. But you know, I just love giving the message. I love being a part of young people's lives and giving them a little push in the right direction.
Yeah,
Um,
it
you know,
definitely
want
shows.
to try and do that.
Yeah. So, Jason, today at this point in your life, what is the matter of your heart? It does not have to be related to the topic tonight, but what is the matter of your heart?
The matter in what concerns my heart.
Just whatever you feel is your heart's desire, your heart's concern. If you had to, like you said, how some of your girls would kind of teach you how to be a little bit more emotional. So if you had to reach inside your heart today, what would you say is the biggest matter concern?
Um, I think the biggest matter is just the idea that when something like this happens, when tragedy happens, when it's not just in Kobe, but in all of our lives, whether it be personal tragedy or something that is national that happens, my heart always wishes that that feeling, that understanding, that sense of loss that we have, that motivates us short term to be better people. I wish it would be long term. You know, I wish there was more of a long term commitment. I think we see this all the time where people see things that go wrong, and they say, "Well, now I'm going to be more loving. I'm going to be more caring," and then 6 months later, it's gone.
Yeah.
Um, I wish that would carry on forever. Because again, to be at this point in my life, the back end, knowing full well that the things that I teach to my kids and to the people around me are going to have to be taken and by them without me here. It's
Mm,
important that I know that they truly understand those things. They truly embrace those things. They truly want and understand what I mean and what's important to me, that they take with them the rest of their lives. And I wish in a general sense that when things do go wrong and we want to right them, we stop waiting for things to go wrong. Like, you shouldn't have to wait for someone to possibly die or to someone to pass for you to tell the other people in your life how much and how important they are to you,
yeah.
or show them. It doesn't necessarily have to be your words. It can be your actions. We show love in a lot of different ways, not just by saying three simple words. And I think if we learn to appreciate each other just a little bit more, we learn to appreciate the sunshine and the rain together, that life would be a lot better experience. And I just think that quite often what happens is that we get, I can't say tied up, or we get locked down maybe to the everyday mundane chores that we have, that we forget how special it is to wake up in the morning, We forget how special it is to taste food or see sunshine or feel the rain. And don't ever take it for granted. I lost my father when I was 10. And I tell people all the time, as much as it's hurt me for my whole life not having him here, it's made me appreciate the people in my life that I've had, and whether it be my siblings and certainly my mother when she was alive, all my relatives and certainly my friends. Russell and I have been great friends for a long time. We've talked about just about everything under the sun, and it's been 40 years. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't appreciate people like Russell in my life, because I know that he's a special person, one of many special people that have made my life that much better. And I appreciate that.
And that's good
I
stuff.
appreciate you too, bro.
All right, bro.
Jason, what do you think? So you said like you just wish that energy could be more long term. What do you think, what do you think is the key to that longevity? Like just for all of us, like how do we maintain that? Like
I think
but
go ahead.
What do you think?
Well, I just think that one of the things that we tend to miss on is that the simple things in life are the best. So many times, and certainly we live in a society that trying to honors, I guess, achievement as far as especially financial gain. But, we miss and we don't see the simple things. Like I said, the sunrise, the moon at night, time spent with families, time spent with friends, time spent alone, I think we tend to get too locked up on the goal, and we don't appreciate the journey, the process. I love, for example, I love houseplants. It's something I got from my mother. She, had a green thumb and she gave it to me, so to speak. And so I love the process of repotting plants and watching them grow in its day to day. I check on my plants every day, and I water. Excuse me?
I said that requires patience and
exactly. But what it also does is it requires the idea that there are two things that have to go for that are ingredients that help plants grow, and it's sunshine and rain. And we are the same as people. We need the rain to appreciate the sunshine. Quite often what happens is everybody wants a sunny day, but if you had all sunny days, you wouldn't know what it's like to not, struggle. And you wouldn't appreciate, the gains as much, because it would always be the same. So, quite often we see stories of people who have come up from nothing and achieved greatness simply because of the struggle they had. And quite often what they'll say is and talk about is it's the process, it's the journey. And it's the reason why I continue to coach after 30 years. It's not because, looking for more hardware or silver, or gold medals or rings. I don't even wear the ones I have. But it's the idea and the process that there's a young man out there, a young woman out there that may need some direction, that may love the game and can use the game to become a better person. And every day is a new day that you have to shape and formulate your life. And what you do with it is your choice. And I think we can think of others as we think of ourselves. We can think of giving as much as receiving, as being a joy. Then I think the world becomes a better place. And I think the other thing too is, more than anything else, you as a person become a better person because your heart feels more fulfilled. You feel like you've done something. You feel like you've given something. And that even after you're gone, people will remember the things that you were able to contribute to this society. And I think that's what it's about. That's my opinion, and obviously I can't necessarily prove all those things, but that's the way I live my life. And that's the person I try to be.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah. So Jason, can you recommend a book to our listeners?
About that? One of the books that was really important to me reading, and it's kind of, I guess it has a basketball theme. It doesn't have a basketball theme, but it came from basketball. In the movie Coach Carter, there's the famous speech, I guess, or lines that guy crew team, it's a Timo Cruz gives to them about, your deepest fear. And in that, he gives a speech about, shining, and your deepest fear should not be the shriveling up, but it should be more about shining. And that comes from a book, Marianne Williamson.
Is that Marianne Williamson quote?
Marianne Williamson, yeah. She ran for the Democratic nomination recently, but she's a writer. She's written many books. And after that movie, sorry, say that again?
Is it one of her books?
Yeah, it's in her book, and the book is called A Return to Love.
Oh.
Reflections on the Principles of Course in Miracles. And it's actually from that book. And like I said, it was like a huge thing, especially for us as basketball coaches and people who were following basketball. It was a big thing. Like everybody was talking about it. People were putting it on the wall and stuff like that. But the book is a really good book about just really refocusing and recentering your life, using love as the basis of how you live your life. And that is just a passage in the book.
Yeah, actually, I have that book. I'm actually looking at my bookcase, like, where is it? It was great. I don't know if you also got a chance to read The Divine Law of Compensation, but that's also another good read. But I know talking about A Return to Love.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yes.
Recommendation.
Yes, I bought it 3 times because I've given it away twice once to a player and once to a kid I knew. So if I'm giving away books, it's a great book.
Yeah, I usually buy 2 and gift ones. And I think, books is the gift that keeps on giving, because you can always go back to it, reread it, and all that stuff.
Oh, over and over. Exactly. That's exactly it. I'm the same way. I just kind of grew up in a household full of books, and it was a big thing in our lives, and something I do all the time now.
Awesome. Did you have anything else, Russell?
No, that we could actually keep talking.
I know.
To Jason
I could
forever.
talk to you forever. But
and I think one of the things that Russell and I have spoken many times, and certainly we both being Laker fans, Kobe fans, but we even beyond all of those things, both have a lot of the same ideas. I think obviously, like I said, we were raised in similar situations. We've known each other for a long time, and we've tried to live our lives that in similar fashions. With the idea of there's a certain amount of personal achievement you want to have in your life, but you also want to be a good person and give back to the world around you. So after you're gone, people can take that message and carry it on. And so I think anytime you have positive talk in interaction, it's something that seems to almost light a fire in people and keeps people going. And so we've had many talks similar to this, not necessarily about a tragedy, but just about life in general. So I really appreciate you guys asking me to be a part of a podcast and giving me a little chance to speak about, some things that have happened recently, and just about my life and the things that are going on.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. So, wow, this has been Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast. This is Janie. I am co-hosting with Russell Bruce, and we just got finished speaking with Jason Rankin on the impact of Kobe Bryant's death, and just how it has brought up a lot of conversations, I think, in the sports world, fathers and daughters. And so this has been a great conversation with Jason. And Jason, we appreciate you. And I can say that, this will be something great that you're putting out, because if you think about, hey, if you're not here tomorrow, this was a great conversation that somebody can say, wow, he had some really good insight and input and impact. So we appreciate you coming on the show as well.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
All right. Take care, Jason.
You too. Thanks. Talk to you soon.